Absolutely. Here's a story inspired by Coraline, where she finds herself in another mysterious adventure with the other world. Title: The Secret of the Garden Door. It had been months since Coraline had escaped the other mother's clutches and locked the little black key safely away. But despite her best efforts to move on, she still had strange dreams. Sometimes, she'd hear the faint click-clack of buttons or feel the chilling presence of the other world in the shadows of her bedroom. Still, she reminded herself that the door was locked and the key was hidden. One evening, while Coraline was in the garden picking flowers for her mother, she noticed something strange. A small, ivy-covered door was hidden behind the wild rose bushes, something she'd never seen before, even though she'd been in the garden countless times. It was about her height, with an old iron handle that looked as if it hadn't been touched in years. Curiosity prickled at her. Coraline glanced around, but no one was watching. She reached for the door handle, hesitated, then pulled. Surprisingly, it opened without a sound. Beyond the doorway was a lush, winding path that seemed to lead deep into the forest. The air on the other side felt different, cooler, tinged with a faint, earthy smell. Against her better judgment, Coraline stepped through. The path twisted and turned, and the further she walked, the stranger things became. Flowers in colors she'd never seen before lined the path, glowing faintly in the dim light. The trees seemed taller, their trunks gnarled and twisted, their branches stretching like fingers into the darkening sky. After what felt like hours, she emerged into a clearing, and there in the center was a strange, enormous tree. Its roots sprawled across the ground, and in its trunk was another door, similar to the one in the garden. This one was covered in carvings, swirls, faces, animals, etched deep into the wood. Coraline approached cautiously. This whole journey reminded her too much of the other world, but something about the tree drew her in. She hesitated for a moment, then reached out and pushed the door open. Inside, she found herself in a dimly lit room filled with old furniture covered in sheets. It looked almost like her house, but slightly off. A chill ran down her spine. Coraline, a voice called from somewhere within the room. It was faint, like a whisper. She froze. She knew that voice. It was her grandmother's, who had passed away years ago. "Grandma?" Coraline called, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, dear," the voice replied. "Come closer. I've missed you so much." Coraline's heart raced, her pulse pounding in her ears. She knew better than to trust strange voices, especially in strange places, but her feet moved forward as if they had a mind of their own. She walked through the darkened room, following the sound of the voice into a smaller room beyond. There, sitting in an old rocking chair, was a woman who looked eerily like her grandmother, but her eyes were sewn shut with black thread. "Grandma?" Coraline asked, her voice shaking. The woman's mouth twisted into a strange smile. "Yes, my dear Coraline," she said, her voice calm and gentle. "I've been waiting for you." Coraline took a step back. "You're not my grandma. My grandma didn't have stitches." The woman's head tilted and a strange, too-wide grin spread across her face. "Oh, but I'm here now, dear, and I can give you so much. Wouldn't you like a friend who will always be there for you? Someone who will never leave?" As the woman spoke, Coraline noticed shadows creeping from the corners of the room, slithering across the floor. She felt her heart race as the shadows began to take shape, forming small, button-eyed children who stared at her with eerie smiles. Coraline took another step back. She had a sinking feeling that this was another trick, another trap. "Come with me, Coraline," the woman urged, her hand reaching out. "You don't have to go back to that lonely house. You can stay here, with me, where you'll always be loved." But Coraline knew better this time. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "You're not my grandmother," she said firmly. "And I don't need you. I don't want your fake love. I'm going home." The woman's smile faded, and her stitched-shut eyes began to twitch. "You can't leave, Coraline. I won't let you," she hissed, her voice growing dark and menacing. The shadows around her started to close in, reaching for her with cold, clawed hands. Coraline's heart pounded, but she remembered what she'd learned before. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her lucky stone, clutching it tightly. "Stay away from me," she shouted, holding the stone up. A brilliant light burst from the stone, illuminating the room and forcing the shadows back. The button-eyed children wailed, their faces melting away, and the woman shrieked, her form dissolving into nothingness as the light grew brighter. Suddenly, Coraline felt herself being pulled backward, through the rooms, through the tree door, and down the forest path until she stumbled back into her own garden. She gasped, taking in the familiar sight of her house and the warm, comforting light from her kitchen window. She quickly shut the ivy-covered door behind her, feeling its weight settle with a firm click. Coraline let out a sigh of relief, her heart still racing. She'd been tempted by the other world's tricks once before, but now she knew better. She took one last look at the mysterious door, then hurried back to the safety of her home, vowing never to let curiosity take her down such a dark path again. And from then on, Coraline kept a close eye on any mysterious doors, forever wary of what might lie beyond.